Hello, welcome to my channel, and thank you for being here. Today I'll be talking about two photographs. Um, the one that you're seeing now, the caption reads, United Democratic Front and African National Congress aligned militia on guard against Inkatha attacks. Inanda, Durban, 1990. And the interesting thing, apart from the kwasha that this guy is carrying in his hand, homemade weapon, in a time when the proxy that they were being attacked by was being armed with R, R1 highly sophisticated South African Israeli design South African Defense Force weapons were being used against people like this. This man was in his own home defending his territory. And I had come there with the indomitable journalist I worked with at the time, Christina Scott, a Canadian who lived in South Africa and was a fierce advocate of our freedom. We had come and embedded ourselves into this community. And so this image was done like at 10 p.m. And gunshots were sounding through this area. This was a hot area at that time. And we were there to try and tell that story somehow. The reason the man has his hand over his face is my attempt to mask his identity, um, just so that he could be, not that easily identified, because he was the enemy at this point in time. And as you can see, the cap that he's wearing, black and white, doesn't really, but those are the African National Congress colors in his kind of military style cap. But he was an ordinary township resident in his own house. And I have another image of him and a younger a boy, literally sitting on this on one of these couches that you see here. The two of them together, him with his kwasha and the young man with the guitar, passing the time. Those are the kind of images, and of course, um, as I said earlier, that what defines that moment is that image, the poster on the wall of a recently released Nelson Mandela um, poster produced by our local Durban Zulu publication, Africa, and proudly displayed on the wall of this house. At that time, that could be a death sentence for the proxy forces, who, as we know, raged right until the last minute before 1994. The second image that you looks at that you see now, the caption reads, Inkatha Freedom Party, Vulindlela, Pietermaritzburg, KwaZulu-Natal, 1987. This image talks about the indoctrination that took place to rally those proxy forces. And the age at which people were inducted into that movement is apparent in this image. And I was a regular visitor, attendee of a long story for another day, of IFP meetings in Ulundi and places like that. And as somebody who has some understanding and some command of Zulu, not a full one by a long chalk, but enough to have some comprehension, I knew that the speeches that were being made in Zulu were a far cry from the speeches being made in English, the little that was said in English in those meetings. In Zulu, these were rallying calls to defend the Zulu order, if you like, the conservative, traditional, tribal Zulu order, and the political one of Inkatha. And that resulted in these kind of instances where very young kids were being inducted into something that they didn't quite fully understand. It's a tragedy of our time. And what is the extraordinary thing is the the uh, I struggling with the word, but how we've managed to overcome those differences and find an uneasy truce and an uneasy calm, which we need to value, because civil wars are one of the worst things that people can be subjected to. And I always think that it's extraordinary that we negotiated a peace when tens of thousands of people brothers had killed each other, same people fighting each other for different ideas. Ideas are powerful, and they can set us apart if we allow those that want us to be set apart by our ideas to do so. Ideas need to be entertained and engaged with in ways in which the people who now call themselves the Zulu people were famed for in the past, before they allowed violence to become the nexus in which they used to decide, you know, might is right, rather than the the right idea that would benefit everybody being the one that is that won the day. So again, I'm recording this on Freedom Day, and uh, you know, um, I think it's fitting in a way that to look back at our some of our um, core moments that were on the path to what we call freedom today. Um, and I just wanted to point out that these two images that I've just discussed share a page, and I'm working through, as I uh, repeatedly say, I'm working through the anthology, my mid-career anthology, which is Call and Response, and and just using this medium as a way to embed these personal stories that I have of what it took to make these images. And I hope that our country never returns to such levels of violence. We see it erupting now in Sudan, and we know that there is a method, which I've spent 25, 30 years of my later life looking at, to understand the broader uh, uh, the broader trends, global trends in how we organize ourselves as societies. To understand that there's something called geopolitics, which is in its essence uh, a, a method used to divide and rule people for the benefit of a small elite who own the major transnational corporations and are the shareholders, um, and own pretty much most of the wealth of humanity in the Western world, for for certain. And um, we need to be vigilant when we respond to our conflicting ideas about what agendas we are serving, because far too easily we serve those uh, agendas that don't have us as the people's interests at heart. So I'll end this uh, talk now and say thank you for watching. And more information on myself and my work can be found on my website, a link to which, including my blog and email address, can be found in the video description below. If you like this talk, remember to click the like button and press subscribe. It helps the channel grow.